Oh, buddy, do we have a lot to talk. How did I tripped up on the third word. It's the second time recording and I tripped up on the third word.
That's what a month off does to you. You gotta stay active in these things, Joey. Otherwise, you get rusty.
I forgot how to talk. Like, I've been talking still. I've used microphones. I've had video calls.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least we're having no production issues with the podcast, right?
Zero production issues. No internet problems. Everything's fine. If you see an issue with the video, don't tweet me or zeet me or fucking post in the YouTube comments or do what's good for engagement. I don't care. Woo! It's been a minute. We have like there's like a TI conversation to have. There's like a roster shuffle conversation to have. There's like a post TI conversation to have. There's the internet conversation, which is still looking like it's not good. So that's going to be a problem for me in post production in a minute. But you know what? I'm going to try and power through. We're going to see if it can work. It might not work.
All right. You know what's funny is I'm watching Spider-Man, the newest one that just came out. I'm watching that on Netflix right now. And that actually feels like, let's do this again. The whole intro of that is, I am the one and only Spider-Man. This is the first take of the podcast. All right, so it's been a month. We're back. We did not do a podcast because we both worked TI. And then I came back and I was sick. And then, yeah, just in general, had a hard time getting the podcast going. But yeah, we're here now. Joey, how was your first TI?
Whew. So for those who don't know, which is probably most people, but some people definitely do, shout out to everybody in the Discord, or the people who are paying attention to the TI stream, I was working the broadcast. Like not for Team Liquid, not for Team Liquid. I don't know what the second point of that was going to be.
Hired by Gabe Newell himself.
I got an email a month before TI and it said, hey, we need a producer to help with the broadcast. And I thought to myself, this looks fake. But I responded anyways because I saw that the email was kind of from a Valve software account. Talked to some people. They needed help. Somebody recommended me. I think multiple people recommended me, so thank you. And I realized right away that this is something that I wanted to do. Why is it something that I wanted to do? I mean, not to be too dramatic about it, but it's probably like a bucket list item to work on a show like that for a game that I care about like this, for a event that I've been going to for 10 years now, literally 10 years now, a decade. It's like, oh, this is a thing that I want to do. And as soon as I realized it's a thing that I wanted to do, which was right away, I went, shit. I have to make sure that Liquid is okay with me doing this, which was...
Yes, because the Monster Mornings was already a thing that was happening.
It was sold. I wasn't fucking with anybody when I said it on the last show or before that. Like, Monster really liked the product. They gave us a renewed contract this year with the idea that, like, it was a cornerstone thing that we were going to do because they liked what we did so much last year. And then I went a month before the show was going to happen and kind of a little bit selfishly fucked it up. Yeah, that happened. So I had to pitch.
I hope Mike doesn't listen to this podcast.
No, so Mike, who might be listening to the podcast because he has a very beautiful baby boy now, is I actually talked to him personally and privately. Mike is the esports person at Monster, and I'm like, hey, are you going to be upset if I do this? Because I wanted to make sure that nobody was going to be that grumpy. And I worked it all out. It was a little bit iffy for a second. I had to do a little bit of begging and pleading. I had to talk to Victor. I had to talk to a bunch of people. But eventually I worked it out and people let me go, which means that I was a producer on the international broadcast. And functionally what that means is that I worked on all the segments for the Road to the International and the International, which I got to make sure you say it correctly.
Of course.
Yes, thank you. For like everything that Purge was doing, I was helping him like write and set up and do those, and then almost everything that like Slacks and Tsunami were doing out in the crowd with the venue with the fans. Casey too, so that's probably why if you had a keen eye, you might have saw me running around with a headset, and it was it was pretty sublime. It was cool. It was the first time in a while that I worked with a bunch of people who were just like truly fucking professionals, because most people I work with are like, they kind of figured it out themselves, or are still relatively young.
They're esports professionals. Yeah.
I do work with some TV people, and I do work with some like very talented directors and cinematographers, and who've done that stuff. So I don't want to blast anybody who will never hear this, but it was crazy to work with people who like do the Olympics, do the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So it was cool to meet all those people. It was cool to meet some of the Valve people behind the scenes, and like get to talk to them. And really, it was bizarre to almost put faces to names, because if you've been I've done a lot of giving notes from the sidelines on productions like TI last year and events before, but now I really it almost feels like I was thrown in there. I was like, welp. Now you're going to see firsthand, and I definitely saw firsthand, and I definitely don't know what I can talk about because I definitely signed an NDA. So,
I mean, we can get around this. I will ask you questions. How stressful was TI for you compared to other events that you've worked? Because I will say this was the best TI I have ever worked, and I'm going to say the best TI that has ever been from a behind the scenes perspective, in that I think everything went very smoothly. A lot of people I talked to felt like it was going very smoothly. A lot of Valve people I talked to said things were going better than they expected, because when you're working live production, you always feel like you're always trying to like scramble to fix things, and everybody was just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, but like things seemed to go very well. So how was it for you?
And let's be clear, I contributed to none of that. But
oh yeah, I mean, this was already an Emmy award-winning show before you got here, so
exactly, and that's not even me being funny. Like the people who ran it were like incredibly talented, and really had their shit together. I expected more problems. Just like through and through, both from like what I've seen as a viewer, both from what I know about live production, what's happened in TI's past. Like I think literally every time I've been to the International, especially like everyone in Seattle, there's been like hey guys, the first game's delayed for like 3 hours, or
there was no DDoS that happened in the middle of TI. That was what, TI 4, 5, something like that. Yeah, there was no the TVs in the stadium, I don't think, blacked out at any point in time.
No.
I remember I was casting a series for that one. That happened. A lot of things like that.
Everything felt really smooth to the point where everybody's like, this is going kind of well, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. I was stressed for two reasons. One, even though I was very explicitly not working for Team Liquid during the event, I was emotionally invested in the games they were playing.
Yeah.
Which I think I somewhat controlled, but there was 15% of me that was like, having that going through my head, and then also making sure that all of my team members who were also in Seattle doing stuff for Liquid were also doing their work. So there was like a non-zero amount of me doing two jobs.
Yeah, we had to ask Joey questions about the show sometimes. Joey, can we do this? Can we do that?
Yeah, sure. And the other part of the stress was, it was the first time in years that my role in a production was like to do a single-ish thing. Like I was
Yeah.
a person on the assembly line at the car factory, and I just needed to put lug nuts in. And that was like 80% of my job was just putting lug nuts in. And I haven't had like a single objective in production in a very long time. I'm used to like kind of running the show a little bit, dealing with more problems, dealing with crew, doing a bunch of things, right? So
Pretty much any problem that popped up at TI was probably nothing to do with you and not your like.
yeah,
You didn't have to worry about it, right?
I didn't have to worry about it, and like I didn't know how much to like be overburdening and be like, hey, is there more work for me to do? Hey, can I help? Hey, like, let me try and fix this, versus just sitting there and putting the lug nuts in the wheel. And that which is like, I'm describing the lack of work was stressful, which makes me think that I have a problem, which also isn't news. But
I think we've been doing this podcast for about 4 years now, Joey, and yes, I think this has been an ongoing theme.
Not news.
Joey Thymian has a problem with his relationship with work.
Yes. Yeah, I do. So I got to focus, like there were times where I was just like, talking to people and hanging out. It was really cool to, just like be backstage, see how it all works. Checking Crimson Witnesses prices, working with Kevin to make sure that, working with Purge to make sure that like, cool segments were going to happen. It was really rewarding. Like the whole show, the whole process was really rewarding. And I'm glad that I did it, and I'm glad that Liquid let me do it. And it was fun to just like kind of hang out with my friends backstage and like make a cool show. Like, I remember fucking the last time TI was in Seattle, I was not working in esports. I shared an Airbnb with Tsunami and a bunch of the Reddit moderators. We put together like a little community charity shop and like, did some stuff outside on the lawn. And at night, like Tsunami and I or other people and I would talk about like, yeah, like, I think maybe there's a way to like get into esports and actually like work the event and do the thing. So like I had a real moment for like 15 seconds on stage when I was standing behind the camera and Slacks and Tsunami are about to, introduce the event and show the Aegis in the crowd, and I'm like there to count them in with a headset on, where I'm like, oh fuck, we're like doing the thing that we talked about doing 5 or 6 years ago, and it's like real, and we kind of made it happen. And that moment was both like rewarding and sobering, and I was like, getting just the slightest bit misty-eyed on stage. So that was cool. That was cool. It's gratifying.
Nice. That's I remember talking to Tsunami and him talking about the fact that this is the first TI that he's worked with a crowd. Mm-hmm. Right, because TI, like COVID happened, and TI-10 obviously no crowd, and then TI-11 they were in Norway. Mm-hmm. So this is the first time he actually got to experience the TI crowd, and it's at the home of TI in Seattle. So I think a lot of people had their own versions of that story, but the fact that you and Tsunami got to do it together is really cool.
Yeah. I got to sit down at the desk with you after you casted a grand final and the confetti was on the floor, and I was like, beaming a little bit for you.
We got a super cute picture together. It was great.
We did.
I love that picture.
So, a lot of wins.
All in all, pretty happy with TI?
I have literally a single complaint. I have a single complaint. I have a single one complaint. Ichi.
Mm-hmm.
The team didn't win.
Yeah, they didn't do that. No. They were... No, they didn't make it. They made it to the final weekend.
They made it to the final weekend. They got cool AR stuff. They were like the only like they lost in 2-1 games to the first and second place team. They had what I would call
that's
like
a rough way to go out when you get like 5th, 6th, but you're kind of the third best team there, and the record does kind of show it. Like like you could talk about like bracket luck and that sort of thing, but legitimately, you got beat by the team that got first, and then you got beat by the team that got second. That's was it Quincy Crew? Quincy Crew. They used to have that same kind of luck too, where they would just lose to OG, TI8, TI9. They just lose to OG. It's just like, what can you do? They went on to win the whole thing, so
Man, I was pretty happy for Spirit. As happy as I could be for any team that was going to win that event. I was pretty happy for Spirit. I was pretty stoked to see Azure Ray's story and, watch Maybe and why. I was pretty stoked for all the love that LGD was getting. Like, the atmosphere of the final 2 days in the arena was simply pretty cool. And it helped a little bit with the heartbreak. Fucking you can like I think it's even in the vlog that Liquid did for TI, but there's like a moment backstage where I'm like gonna get Will and Zai to go for the interview, and like Mickey just apologizes to me, and I'm like fucking basically start crying, and I'm like stop.
Cute.
I got to hang out with Insania's mom and sister a little bit after the loss. And they're like so incredibly happy to just like be there and watch Aiden sign autographs that it was hard to be sad.
Yeah.
It was,
I just did the podcast with Blitz, and like all in all, the year was successful. I mean, like, money is like one of the best ways to judge these things, and they did end up second, which is funny enough, but they did end up second in overall earnings for the year, right? So, and they did it without placing high at TI. Obviously, a lot of the money is from Riyadh, but like ultimately, they were kind of like the second most consistent team of this year. Game of Gladiators, they fell short at Riyadh, so they ended up making less money than Team Liquid, but which is kind of funny. But I think they had like easily the most consistent year, and then Team Spirit. They were just like
unstoppable.
I think it's pretty rare that I have felt the way I have about a team at TI. I know Avery felt that way about Tundra last year, but like I don't think I really felt the way I did about Spirit this year, since like OG TI9, and then before that, TI6 Wings. Maybe Liquid at TI7, maybe, but that was a little bit murkier. But like, it is very rare, I think, to have clearly as it was such a dominant team at TI. This was one of the most dominant performances I think that TI has ever seen, and it was, for my money, it was very obvious. Like, there's a reason why there's only been 2 3-0 shutouts in TI's history. It was Spirit and last year's Tundra, right? And I don't think anybody is going to walk away. There's no going to be revisionist look back on it, Wraith Pact, like blah, blah, blah. Like, especially since
it's not going to be Wraith Pact. It's going to be Yataro. Like,
yeah, people are going to be like, this player was so fucking good, that you just can't fucking stop him. Yeah, you could see it. I could be like, you could see it coming a mile away.
Do you remember how many games Team Spirit lost the whole event? Games, maps?
Yeah, they lost 2 games individually. One against the first team that they matched up against, the Chinese team. I can't remember who it was. Or no,
it was
no,
Virtus
they
Pro.
lost it within their own region. Yeah,
It was
they lost to Virtus Pro. And then they lost to Team Liquid, Those are the only 2 L's they took the entire TI, which is
19-2. They went 19-2.
Which is, I believe, the highest win percentage that any TI champion has had, going back to, I think, Alliance had the second most dominant run. So, yeah, that's crazy. There are some differences, of course. Like, this year not having the round robin means that teams did have to play less games, I think, overall, compared to the gigantic round robins. Also, I think it's harder to maintain a flawless streak through those older TIs when you're playing day after day after day and you're going through that round robin. I think it's way more expected that you drop single games, but still an incredible record nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm still not sure if I liked the format more than previous years. I'm still like a little bit lukewarm on it because of all of the breaks. I understand, I know we talked about before, that it was probably good for viewership, but I don't know.
Yeah, from a viewership perspective, I think it was incredibly friendly, and I think there are certain things that just will not change, right? I think the weekends, I don't see them changing that. I think they're going to keep those break days the way they are, so teams are just going to have to adjust. I think that the group stage is, again, something that I would guess Valve is going to keep, because from a broadcast perspective, it's incredibly viewer friendly to just have it. It's a lot simpler just to be able to go down to a single stream by day 2 of the entire thing. So that, I think, is pretty value. But I think the solution that I mostly came up with is that I don't think your group stage needs to be on the weekend. So I understand the weekend Dota, especially for people who are actually attending the event, right? Weekend Dota makes sense. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But I think that they should change it so that you don't have the group stage on that that first weekend. And I think you just have it start on like Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and you play for like 5 or 6 days. So you stretch out the group stage a little bit more. Basically, you play that whole week, and then you end on a Wednesday. Thursday is a break day, and then you start up, the road to TI, which is the playoffs, right, on Friday. So then, I think that is a better format personally, because then you stretch out the games a little bit more, and give the teams a little bit more to do, basically. I think it allows people to be able to watch more of the group stage. And so I think it's more player friendly. I think it's more, in some ways there are pros and cons to it, but I think hardcore viewership would appreciate that more. And then, who cares about people going and attending, because nobody's watching the group stage live, right?
Yeah.
So whatever.
I'm into that.
But that's the only change that I would suggest to them moving forward, but we'll see.
I think it's interesting that we don't know where TI is going to be next year. They didn't make a little next year announcement.
Nope.
Which is a little abnormal at this point. So that leaves some question marks.
I do wonder, right? There were some conspiracy theories going around about TI. One of those was like a year ago. One of those conspiracy theories was that we were going to be going to South America more. And if I remember correctly, one of those was that there was going to be a major in South America, and then see if we could do a TI in South America, right? And the idea put out there basically being that the major is a test run for TI in some ways, right? And obviously the Lima major did not go well at all. No. So if there was any credence to that rumor, then maybe second guessing things, because I remember TI 10, right? The COVID major, short notice going to Romania, and them running out of green paint right, for the green screen stuff that they were doing for their studio, right? So if supplies is an issue, right, then like going to South America, like that's not going to fix things, right? That's only going to make things harder for some of this stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised especially with how smoothly things ran this year. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody at Valve was just like, guys, let's just make it easy on ourselves. Like, I would love to see it in Seattle again, personally, but I feel like Western Europe never got a TI, really.
True.
So
they didn't.
My expectations is that we would go back there at some point in time. I think TI should happen in South America, though, as well. But it's all up to the mindset of Valve, right? How much do they want to keep, do they want to keep scaling down on TI? Because this product was fantastic. I wasn't surprised because we were back in Seattle, but, are we going to continue the runaround stuff, or does Valve want to keep it closer to home so they can control it better and make the good product that it became?
I wouldn't be surprised if it stayed in Seattle.
Yeah. And
I also think that's kind of okay. Maybe that's my Yankee bias or my I'm a 2-hour flight away bias, but I think it might stay and it'd be fine. I think that they being Valve and everybody who ran the event probably deserve some flowers, because it seems like there was a lot of last year people complaining, including us. You can pull up the VODs of the show where we talked about the things that just weren't good about TI, from the betting sponsors to the group stages being janky to the having people split in 2 different regions to we had baker's dozen complaints about the show, and it feels like a lot of that stuff was kind of addressed and fixed, and TI felt special again. And in years past, specifically last year, maybe even the year before that was kind of what it felt like it was missing, right? Was that touch or that credence, that ambiance, and that felt like it was gotten right this year. Everything from the AR and the opening and the choir to just the smoothness of the event to the lack of people doing everything super remote. I'm pretty happy with the product and what changed from last year to this year. And I don't want to have that be forgotten, because I'm sure in 6 months we'll be complaining about something else.
There were definitely some people who thought I was coping. Remember I said doesn't feel great, we're downscaling and stuff, but I was like, but we're going back to Seattle. I feel like Valve wants to put on a good show. If they're in Seattle, they're in their home court, they want to do a good job, and they did. They knocked it out of the park, I think, with this one. I also have one complaint. One thing that I think was it stood out a lot for me, maybe because there were no problems and the production was so flawless. I mean, the aesthetic is just so fucking good. The way they did the VR stuff on stream with the stained glass covering up the second, that was a really clever combination of some people I talked to, they really didn't like it, but I thought it was a fantastic combination of it covers up if those areas are more empty, right? Mm-hmm. So then it feels like the stadium's completely full, which it was largely. But obviously those upper areas are going to be the areas that are going to be missing fans, but also just looked fantastic. And there was a lot of cool things that they were able to do, largely with the opening and the heroes coming through the stained glass windows. That was definitely, I think, one of the best introductions to TI. As I said, the smoothness of it was fantastic. All these different things. But the one thing that was missing was
an all-star
content.
event. Oh.
No, not an all-star event. They didn't do the all-star event. Instead, they did the round table, which, I mean, I was prepping for doing the final, so I didn't watch any of that. So I don't know if that was any good.
Didn't really watch or hear it either because I was busy literally running around the arena with slacks to get from the stage to the service elevator to the mezzanine to the camera with the microphone. He and I, during that time, after like the Puppet Master announcement, before that happened, literally running through the arena to the point where when he is on camera, you can actually hear him be a little bit out of breath. So
the Avo thing.
Well, Avo gets out of breath when he walks from his chair 7 feet, so like it's fine. Like I think he needs an inhaler. That's something different. But yeah. So I was focused on the fact that like it was cool that there were fans who could ask these TI winners questions, but man, it would have been better if there were more articulate fans or better questions.
Okay. No, I didn't even know that was a thing. That was part of it.
They were taking audience Q&As.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, not a terrible idea to get some like. I think there is missing sometimes an interaction between the community and the players, and I don't know if TI even had signing sessions.
No, I think a lot of the stuff was impromptu. I saw I know Insania did one for about 2 hours. I know Stormstormer did one for about 2 hours. I saw Snake King do at least like an hour on the mezzanine. So I think that there was like kind of impromptu if the people were interested in doing it sessions.
Yeah, and previous TI, it was outside the TI signing sessions. It was like across the little road there. There was like another little event part. I remember I went to it and it was outside and it was fucking hot as shit. And so I was just taking pictures with fans and I was drenched in sweat. It was so gross.
Sorry,
I felt terrible. I was just like all these fans, like they'd come up and I'm just fucking dripping wet in my fucking dress shirt. That's a memory that will stay with me forever. So that was missing. So not a terrible idea. I mean, they could definitely be better. Hopefully they'll be able to come up with something that's a bit better there, but fuck the All-Star match. Like I'm down just to like forever never do a fucking All-Star match because those are so incredibly hit or miss. And one of the worst All-Star matches was
Singapore.
Well, I mean, that one was terrible, but one of the worst ones that they did, one of the worst ones that happened was the TI9 one, I think, where Valve actually put a lot of effort into this like really cool mode and they made an introduction to it. And then the players just broke it immediately, like did something like really OP. I think you could like spawn towers. Like there was like power ups that you could get. You remember that?
Yeah.
That was such a cool idea, and they put effort into making a good All-Star match, and it was one of the worst ones ever. So, and that's like no fault of their own. It's just like that's what Dota players are gonna do. So, their fucking whole brains are wired to just fucking manipulate and break things as quick as possible and be overpowered. So, I think it's just like give up on the All-Star matches. But
you're right though. Very little pre-recorded content. No
pre-recorded content.
No, like Casey getting massages with the players. No, like here's what happened this year in Dota. There were some interviews that happened, and it looks like the interviews that happened with the playoff international teams, like they were just all asked the same questions and put into like one video package. Like I know that there was some love for like the which player would you ban or stuff like that piece, but they felt a little bit more boilerplate and like any event could have done that, or like it was a little bit of a low-hanging fruit. There was nothing that felt really
there was nothing special to TI content.
No, like
content
tapes.
That is special to TI. So the Pure and Flax stuff, right? The stuff that he's done the last 2 years, granted you can't do that forever, that you're gonna run out, right? But like the Remember When the brilliant fucking content idea. They probably just ran out. There's only so much you could do with that. But like, so there was no Purian Flax recorded content and no Slacks or pre-recorded content. And that I think was sorely missing from Ti. I felt like it was definitely missing because the only thing that like I remember was the Lena
Twisted
and
Sisters.
Crystal Maiden Twisted Sisters, which was okay, but it just felt like it was kind of like tacked on to the fan videos. So it didn't even get like put in to like help fill some time, and it didn't feel like an independent piece. It just felt like another fan made video, to be honest.
Also had the really unfortunate job of following up support last year, which is one of, if not the best Dota sketch ever made. And so I think in my mind, the video that took that slot last year was S tier, and Twisted Sisters is like C tier.
Yeah.
To the point where people were kind of going like, what the fuck is this? Which is never, ever the response you want for something like that.
Yeah. I was backstage watching the video with a bunch of other like player talent and stuff, and the reaction was just like, oh, what is this? And we're all just kind of like joking around, and then it was just like, oh, this is a video, and then it was just kind of like, huh, okay, whatever. Which the only other content that came pre-recorded content was the hero release video, which I thought was fantastic. I thought they did a really good job with that. But
it was really cool.
Yeah.
But they always nail those. Like,
yeah, they do.
Valve has nailed them for TF2. They've nailed them for Dota. They've done like incredible videos for like even Counter-Strike announcements, which feels almost impossible to do. Like that's like low key their bread and butter. Yeah.
So that was really good. And one bit of pre-recorded content was True Sight.
Why do we need True Sight? We can just watch Team Spirit's vlogs.
I hate to bring it up, but people did expect to see the TI-11 True Sight.
I did. I thought it happened.
We're not doing it, and then we are doing it. Am I crazy? Did Valve actually say they were doing it?
I don't know. I don't remember. I thought yes, but then I thought no. I couldn't remember. I don't know. I thought it was going to happen.
That's just like another piece of like content that could have been there, but that just wasn't. So that for me was like the only thing that I really had a complaint about, was just like, there was just it felt like something was missing, because it has traditionally been there for all of these TIs, and I think the content that has been made through the years has all been like A or S tier. I think like throughout the years, it's been a lot of bangers that have come out of TI pre-recorded content. It just wasn't there this year. So for a show when nothing else is going wrong, it did kind of stand out to me.
You know, I got a conspiracy theory about True Sight.
Yeah. What's that? Tundra was too fucking boring, and they're just like, this is a trash documentary. That's what everybody says. Everybody says, well, I mean, like, Tundra, what can you say? What are you going to get in the comms? Buy a Wraith pack, guys. That's the joke I see all the time.
Yeah, but I also think that there might be like a little sliver of merit to that. Like, they could have recorded those finals and then looked at the footage and been like, there's not much here.
Legitimately, it's a 3-0. Like, there's only so much tension you can build with that, because they did it with True Sight with free to play originally, right? Mm-hmm. That was also a finals that they did a really good job setting it up. But if I remember correctly, that was a 3-1, I believe, with Navi having a upper bracket advantage. So like that story of like the finals by itself was not actually all that interesting. What was great about free to play was all the setup that happened, all of these players' stories going through the event, what happened to them before and how they got there to be there at that point. That was the interesting part. When you have Tundra, which like my understanding was that they were scaling down on True Sight and they were only recording like the final like 2 days, and they're only getting recording from that. Mm-hmm. Like when the finals is 3-0, and it means that you would have to rely on stuff that happened before the finals, but there probably isn't that much of that because there's only the lead up where Tundra is waiting for their opponent, and maybe they got some of the match from that Tundra played in the upper bracket finals. So it's the upper bracket finals that would have to be all the action, really, or most of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it's possible that happened. I don't know what happened. I think it's possible that happened.
And that means this year it's like same problem, right?
But here's the difference. And I'm not looking to throw flame at Tundra, which I think RIP. We'll get to that in a second. I'm not looking to throw flame at Tundra. I bet Team Spirit behind the scenes was more animated and more conducive of filming.
Maybe.
I could see a world where...
I mean, there is a whole bit where Yotaro is shaving his head, but...
Yeah.
There's that bit.
Worked for him twice.
Dude, that's such a boss move. When he comes out on stage and he's fucking bald, the whole crowd's just going, oh, fuck. Holy shit.
He was growing his hair for
final...
like years. He had long-ish hair on the top of his head.
Yeah, like, they're already, like, the fucking final boss, you know? They were like, these guys are fucking untouchable. Like, how the fuck are you gonna bring down... And then midway through that fucking sentence, when you're saying, how the fuck is anybody gonna touch Team Spirit? And then you see him, you're like, oh, fuck! The boss has 2 health bars. That's fucking cheating. You know, it was that kind of moment, which is fucking, you know, that's a sick moment. Too bad the rest of the yeah, fuck me, man. Fucking cast my first TI finals. It's a fucking 3-0. Odie Pixel casts his first TI finals. What does he get? Fucking OG versus LGD TI8 game 5. Fucking, you know, best finals in TI history. I fucking show up, do my first TI finals. It's a fucking 3-0 shit stomp that everybody saw coming a mile away. I saw it coming a mile away. I don't know how you felt about it, but I was so certain. I was just like, I said it in the Monster Morning Show. Actually, I said that I thought LGD was going to be able to make it back in. But I said no matter who shows up, I think they're going to get 3-0. I said it that morning. It's on fucking tape. I said, doesn't matter who shows up, they're going to get 3-0 shit stomped. Shame.
I don't think Liquid would have got 3-0'd.
I don't think Liquid would have got 3-0'd. I think in a weird way, there's a little bit of copium before TI finals itself. But one thing that I did, one logic that I pieced out was that, yeah, I thought anybody was going to get 3-0'd. But personally, I wanted LG to go through for multiple reasons. One, I thought obviously having the Chinese fans cheering is like that is super hype. Yeah. And so you're just missing all the Chinese fans. Like they're still going to be there and stuff, but they're not going to be loud, you know, the way they would have been for LGD. Two, I think LGD was more likely to take games off of Team Spirit. I think they still would have lost the series 100%, but I think they were more likely to at least take a game. Whereas Game and Gladiators, I think were more likely to win this series, but less likely to win games. Does that logic piece out? It's basically like they are sort of an all-in. Like if their play style works, they've got a 5% chance of actually beating Team Spirit. But going head to head against Team Spirit, if their strategy doesn't work, they're less likely to take games off of them. Because I think LGD was better set up for that. But then LGD got run over in the lower bracket finals, so no bueno.
And then Gaming Gladiators was like, hey, we're going to kind of play a little bit of a competitive game 3, but we're going to let Team Spirit have Chaos Knight Dazzle Spirit Breaker.
Yeah. That was
like, if you don't look at if you don't look at the game, if you don't know what happened, and you just look at the draft for game 3, you go, how did they even get to the finals? Why'd they let them have those 3 heroes?
Yeah.
Why do they let them have those 3 heroes? There's probably not a game in the rest of the event where someone got all 3 of those heroes.
I really thought the Gaming Gladiators, like, I'm midway through that game 3, and I realized this too late. I was not prepared for the end of this series.
Oh.
Well, I knew that, like, I had asked, like, hey, what are we doing after, am I doing the call? But, like, mentally, I wasn't prepared for the series to be over. Because I thought Gaming Gladiators are going to win that game 3 halfway through, and then it starts turning against them, and I can see it happening, but obviously I'm focused on casting that bit, and so I wasn't prepared so I think I did not do that good of a job with the Team Spirit trophy bit.
Have you watched that back?
No, I haven't.
Are you going to watch that back?
I haven't watched back the TI finals. I will later on, but I'll just feel bad about it, I think, if I watch it now, because I'm very certain that I did not do that as good as I wanted it to. Whereas like my intros, I think, for my introduction to on Friday morning, I think was very good. I thought my introduction to the finals was pretty good.
Yep.
Like those I was very happy with. And I feel like that is one of my strengths, is the master of ceremony type stuff. I think I'm really good at that. That was actually something Shiver told me at the after party, that she was like, I think that's actually something you do better than Owen. I was like, wow, that means a lot. Thank you. And I was like, I agree. I think that's like usually where I shine, which is a shame then that I fucked it up for the trophy lift. But whatever.
I can't even give notes on that or thoughts on that, because I didn't hear what you said, because the audio when you're on the floor it's not meant for people who are like literally on the floor. So when I'm standing,
no speakers going down.
Yeah, when I'm standing next to y'all, I actually can't hear it.
Yeah.
So I actually don't know what you said.
Yeah. So That part was a little sad, because I was like, oh, it'll be a 3-1. Like, even when they were winning, I was like, oh, that's nice. It'll be a 3-1 instead of a 3-0. Like, I was so like fucking like, it was so obvious to me that like Team Spirit was winning this, but I was like, maybe. I was just like, oh, that'll be nice. And then the game's turning against them, and I'm focused on casting and not thinking about like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to do that little bit, and so that combined with the disappointment of it also being a 3-0 was kind of like, well, that's kind of sucks. But I think for the most part, I think we did about as best as you could do with that sort of thing. I mean, there's not much. Afterwards, at the after party, Fog's like, welcome to the 3-0 club, Which I'm like, that's funny, because he also, last year was also a 3-0. It's only 3-0s in TI history.
Yeah.
But that also is like, yeah, but you got like 4, your fourth one was a 3-0, The only one I've done is a 3-0.
But the fact that you have done it is binary. Like, and nobody can take that away from you.
Yeah. I mean, outside of my disappointment of it being a 3-0, my emotions for it are relatively banal, I think. Like, I don't feel super strongly about it. Like, it is, yeah, it's nice. I did a TI finals. I can say that I've done a TI finals, but I didn't put very much stock into doing TI finals going into this tournament, and I continue to hold that. It's like nice.
Yeah.
The validation is nice. That's mostly what it is. But like, that validation is also just like an ego thing, right? So if I was like truly, you know, like no ego sort of thing, then that wouldn't even necessarily mean that much to me. So
it's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, so, I, as your friend, am very excited when I knew it was going to happen.
Thank you. That's the part that I feel weird about. Is that I feel like everybody around me was way more excited for me than I was. It's just like I kept having to explain this. Or just like, are you excited? Like, are you happy you're doing it? I'm like, oh, congratulations. And then afterwards, how was it? Was it great? I was just like, yeah, it was nice.
I very much knew your stance on it before, right? So yeah. I was just, I don't know. I felt happy, proud. Like, I was just like, oh, like, you know, regardless of your feelings about it, I thought it was cool for you.
Thank you. So, I appreciate that. Yeah. And I appreciate the fact there were a lot of other people who felt that way. Yeah. A lot of other people that I felt that way. And I very much appreciated everybody who said something to me. And in fact, I've been streaming the last like few days. A lot of people have come in and been like, oh, you know, congratulations on doing the finals. It's really cool. And, you know, like, oh, I've been watching you for a long time. Congrats. So, yeah, cool beans. Hope I get to do it again next year. It's always the goal, but we'll see.
So, some of the teams that made top 4 at TI, which is Spirit, Gaiman, Azure Ray, and LGD, all got direct invites to ESL Kuala Lumpur, which is happening in less than a month at this point, which is insane to me. The fact that it's happening so soon. Like, does no one get a break? It's fucking Christmas. I don't know. Calm down, everybody. Like, whatever. But Spirit has already talked about how they're not going to do the event. Yeah. They probably want a break. Maposhka might be taking a break.
Might be taking a break, yeah. Maybe retiring, potentially. Yeah. So.
Azure Ray, don't know what the fuck their roster is at all. It might be none of the same people. LGD, don't know what their roster is, I think, right? Might be maybe none of the same people. Why are they getting invited to this event?
Yeah, we'll have to see how the ecosystem plays out from here, right? Because Valve has always been like very player minded, right? They put way more stock in the players than they do the teams. But esports traditionally has usually given more power to the organizations than a group of players, right? Which makes sense if your understanding of esports and how it should develop is based off of traditional sports, right? If you are trying to copy all of the good things about traditional sports, then you're trying to support a team infrastructure that has that kind of power. But Dota has not been that way. But we no longer have a DPC, so Valve's hold on the system, I mean, they could still be like, here's our rule set, this is what we want you to do by the numbers. Very unlikely that happens because Valve traditionally hasn't been super big about like having rule sets, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that whole thing develops because LGD and Azure Ray very likely are going to be diminished rosters from at least one of those. One of those is going to be probably very diminished from what they were at TI. Yeah. So good old LGD without their PSG backing. Seems like that may be affecting them. There's some other players getting into the field as well, so that'll be somehow like like with orgs getting interested in getting into Dota, I hope that tournament organizers, it's not just team owners, because like team owners are great for the players. It helps increase competition for salaries and gives more people more jobs as players. But ultimately, you need tournaments in order to have those teams be worth something, right? Like, you can have a roster, but if they don't play more than once a month, then that roster may not mean anything. So I hope the fact that there are team owners coming in means also there's tournament organizers also wanting to come into Dota, because right now, there's CSL1 Kuala Lumpur, but I don't know what the rest of the year looks like. So
I think teams are coming in because of the Esports World Cup. And that's kind of the long and short of it. So there's going to be that there for them. There's going to be people who come in and look to like field multiple games to try and get some of the money for the World Cup from Saudi Arabia, aka Gamers 8. But I don't know what's going to happen aside from that, and if the Dota investment will be good for these teams or people, outside of Esports World Cup. That's what I'm curious about. Because that's why we see Falcons have a team. That's why we see, like, if you see another team get into the space in like Q1 next year, and you see that team also probably has like a Rocket League team and a PUBG team and like maybe a FIFA player and a Counter-Strike team and all these things, you can probably guess that it's Esports World Cup related.
Yeah. Which also, I think, increases the likelihood that you're right about TI being in Seattle, because if it means that TI is going to now be the second biggest tournament of the year, do you feel like you need to have it travel around the world? Or can it just be more selfishly a thing that's just like, it is what you like it to be?
Yeah, maybe.
If you're Valve, right? Because like, okay, the big money maker, that's somebody else's tournament. That's somebody else's problem, you know. So yeah, we'll see. It's again, I feel like I've said this a couple times, but it would be a shame if like everything is just we just change out TI and put in Rion. And that's like the ecosystem remains the same, and we have the same problems of the former, which is just like there's just one big monolith fucking tournament, and that's all anybody ever plays for. And I think that would be a problem. I think it would be a problem if ESL is like the only game in town, effectively. Like,
I mean, they kind
I'm sure
of are.
There's going to be other smaller tournaments, I'm sure. But is there going to be a real competitor to ESL? Or is it just going to be the ESL circuit replacing the DPC, and then occasionally there is a little side event that's going on somewhere else?
I think that we're rapidly approaching the point of a monopoly.
Well,
and there's not much we can do about it.
Yeah.
So,
well, as long as I'm getting hired by ESL, I guess.
Yep. That does make that probably a little bit more important, honestly.
Yeah, it does.
I
mean, I could be selfish and just not give a fuck about the ecosystem as a whole and just, hey, whatever's good for me.
It's true. Who are you excited? Are you excited about any of these teams that are playing in this Kuala Lumpur qualifier?
Because we have excited about any of these teams. Okay, so the teams that I'm interested in seeing how they do. This Nouns roster that has Fly and Gunner on it with Lelis. That's a pretty strong trio. It still means that North America is effectively a 3-team region. but also it's a 2-team region because there's no Shopify Rebellion yet because they're taking a break. And we'll even see how strong their roster is when it does come out. But right now it's just TSM announced. The other lineups that are there, I think, are okay. But I think it's mostly just a 2-team race. So that's not terribly exciting. Western Europe continues to be probably the strongest region, at least for now. But OG, I think, is pretty interesting. Them having Whisper is obviously a massive move that could pay off big.
It's pretty cool.
And could choke. We'll see. But I think it's one of those gambles that I think you, as an organization, absolutely should take. Because I think if it pays off in a really big way. And if it doesn't pay off, then I think you still have the core of a very good roster, right? Like 3, 4, 5 months from now, if Whisper's not working or acclimating or whatever, or maybe Ari isn't fitting in, I think the bigger question mark is whether or not Whisper is able to like, his English is not the best. So we'll see how he's able to fit into this situation. But you will still have a very strong core of OG that will be a strong contender for Riyadh and for TI. So take the risk. Why not? Who else? No one else of Western Europe is really that interesting. Obviously, Team Liquid is probably still a pretty strong team. We'll see how that whole thing works out there. South America, we had some moves around. So Bakaz is now on Boom Esports. They moved from Southeast Asia. Yeah, Bakaz. I think those are two of the best South American players in South America, seeing as Whisper is no longer there. So that roster is just de facto number one, and we'll see how the rest of the scene is able to get along. But I think, like, looking at it, I feel like it's mostly just Boom. I think there are going to be a second and third best team. We'll see if Smash, I'm thinking mostly interested to see whether or not Smash is able to reclaim his place as one of the best offlaners in the world. Because he's been out of the game for 5 years since his cheating scandal. So
yeah, that has been a minute, huh?
Yeah. He was banned for 7 years, I think, by Valve, and 5 years by ESL. So now that Valve is no longer really a thing, he can't play for TI, but can play for the most important tournament of the year.
What do you think he did for those 5 years?
He's been playing a lot of Dota. Like, I run into him in pubs all the time, and he is used to be in the top 10 regularly. I feel like over the last 2 or 3 years, I've seen him more in the top 100. So he has definitely declined a bit.
Or got a job.
Well, no, he streams.
Okay.
So I think that basically is his job, is still playing Dota. It's just, being on a team was not a thing. So Eastern Europe didn't change too much. VP, Nine Pandas, BetBoom is still the top dogs there.
Is it
China
official that they're not really
one
changing? Like, was there any? Was the official news from BetBoom is we're running it back?
Yeah, they. I have not seen anything that has said we're keeping our same roster and running it back. I have a feeling that maybe these rosters are just here for Kuala Lumpur, and then we're very likely, I think BetBoom, Virtus Pro, Nine Pandas, there will be some sort of switch around. I'm sure. Just seems like not yet. Wait until after the new year, probably.
Yeah, they might be on year contracts too, or calendar year contracts. Some of them.
Yeah. Since Dota has become a little bit more straightforward in that regard. We now have just the 2023 season, the 2024 season. You know, it used to be with TI happening in the middle of the summer. We had this like very weird season versus year sort of thing. Most contracts would end after TI, but you're right. Most contracts, I think, a lot more contracts are probably just throughout the whole year now. How do you feel about this new MENA region? Obviously doesn't look great when your open qualifiers is just whoever wants to play, you know, because there's not enough teams. So it's just kind of like, I mean, if you want to play, you can play. You can put together a stack and play. We've got the slots open. If not, we'll give buys to people.
There'll probably be one more team when Nigma figures out whatever they're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. They're definitely obviously Shopify is taking a break. Obviously, Nigma is taking a break. Though Nigma has put out basically that their roster seems to be the same. The way they talked about it, like they're like, we'll answer some questions from fans, and they're like, is Miracle coming back? He never left. Is Mind Control sticking around? Yeah, he's here. Is Curl retired? Like, they basically said everybody else is good, and then is Curl retiring? We don't know. So it kind of seems like Nigma is gonna be the same in some ways or another. And then the big change will obviously, like, they'll probably have like one new player or something like that. Maybe two if Curl indeed retires. But that for me is like the only news I'm really waiting for from that organization, because like otherwise I just like, I'm kind of just expecting the roster to be mostly the same. So whatever.
Falcons is the interesting story here though. I don't think this is me probably like having some weird like Tundra wasn't that good, but because I've heard them people say like super team. And I don't 100% feel like that.
Would you agree that if there was a super team that has been formed this year, this so far, it's this one?
From scratch, I guess by default, because who else is competing for that title?
Yeah. I mean, the problem is that all the good teams stayed together, right? Liquid, Spirit, Gaming Gladiators. Top 3 teams of the year.
I lied. I have an answer. I have an answer for you. Fuck you. I just thought about it. IG.
You're really fucking hopped up on this IG roster. Why?
I really think that Monet and Nothing to Say are really fucking good. I've always liked watching JT play. I think Baboka is very funny because you can make jokes about prostitutes with every team he's on, which is great. I'm friendly with Ex Nova and will just be a supporter of his carte blanche. So like, yeah, I think this team is cool.
I think they're cool, but I don't think they're the best team in China. I think the best team in China is yet to be announced. But I think they're the second or third best team in China. I think like they may end up being the best team in some of these qualifiers. This one, obviously, it seems like the Chinese team is also taking a break. Whatever LGD, Azure, whatever is happening there. There are some notable players that are missing enough to form at least 2 rosters. So I'm expecting at least one more roster to be coming out, if not 2. And I think one of those rosters will very likely be the best team in China by the end of the year. So I think Falcons, they've got 2 TI winners and they have Crit, which I think people have slept on Crit because of
having basically 0 success in 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, thank God that's fucking over with. Jesus Christ. I was so fucking bored of that roster. Oh my God. Like, it's going to be better for both of them. It has to be. It can't really be worse, frankly. Like, for players of that caliber, their fucking success was nothing for the last 2 or 3 years. They just kind of limped to event after event. So I think this is going to be much better for both of these people. I'm mostly thinking of Crit and Arteezy. I feel like they're both going to reach not new heights, but certainly better heights than last year.
Yeah.
I think very likely both of these teams will be elevated. I don't know about Fly's roster, and I don't know about Abed. It's hard to tell with Southeast Asia just because they have just not performed well outside of the one team, right? So always seemed to be one Southeast Asian team that is doing well. Been Talon for the last year or 2 or 3 or whatever, but it's like we don't see multiple teams succeeding on the international stage for years now. So kind of hard to tell there. And Fly's roster looks,
it's not even done. Like,
okay,
but maybe they keep Stormer. But it's not done either. So it's hard to tell.
Yeah. So just Shopify and Falcons, I think they will very likely be good teams. And I think Skeeter Snaking, 2 TI winners, Crit, monster player. I think he's still got it. ATF, amazing fucking asset to have. I mean, those 4, that is enough for me to be like, yeah, that's a fucking super team right there. And then Maureen is a good player, has been in the top 100, top 10 in Western Europe for a long time. He's like very high MMR all the time. I know he's got this relationship with Amar. So yeah, I could see this roster being very, very good.
It seems like the qualifiers might be the most interesting right now for the C region, because there's Aurora, which is like the old Talon squad, but like Bleed and Talon and Blacklist have all kind of shuffled around people again. And it feels like potentially the most competitive, even though I don't know if I have faith in any of these teams like internally competitive, externally question mark.
So I literally just saw a thread on Reddit. I was telling you about it. It's somebody saying, is it just me or is Southeast Asia like super stacked this year? And I'm just like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, what do you mean this year? Because like, if you think this year was stacked, surely you believe that previous years were also stacked. The problem is the results just aren't there. The only thing that has changed, like the same names are just being shuffled around. So it doesn't nothing has really changed all that much. I look through these names and I'm like, yeah, I know all those people. The only thing that's really changed is Taiga is now playing in Southeast Asia for Bleed. But I will also say that Taiga did not have success in NA. So, we'll see how that goes for him. He also has his own like personal stuff going on with his gambling bit and all that sort of thing. So that's just questionable. I know you love Tommy.
It makes me a fan of Bleed.
He seems like a great guy.
It makes yeah. I'm gonna be happy when Bleed wins.
I hope he succeeds, but I am questionable as whether or not that actually happens. Armel is back from Secret, but Armel has been there in Southeast Asia before. And I don't feel the same way I did about him 2 years ago, and then Abed's back, but is he the same Abed that left? Like, do I think that Abed is he still that amazing mid laner, one of the best mid laners in the world? Possibly.
Well,
it's definitely possible. Like, I cannot over fucking say this enough, but that I feel like that Shopify roster was stifling to all the talent there. I think it was just bad for them. So it's possible Abed reaches new heights now that he's been freed from that prison. But there is a lot more competition in the mid laner. Miracle is not the same player he was in competition with the other mid laners of the world today. And I feel like Abed is the same way.
He left for NA 4 years ago. He joined EG in September of 2019.
Yeah.
Right before the world shut down. He's coming back after 4 years middling on an NA team. He's coming back 4 years playing. He's coming back 4 years of a pandemic. And he's 23 now. When he left to come to America, he was 19. You know?
Yeah.
He's also probably like a different person as a human also.
Yep. So my question, like, for him, because I've been around him. I've been around him in even social settings, and that dude is so quiet. I would love to know, does he still have the fire? Or is he back in Southeast Asia? And is this just kind of like a retirement fan? Because that's what I feel like for some of these C players. I feel like for some of them, this is them just kind of like coasting out there, you know, easy money. Don't need to be the best. Be like one of the best teams in Southeast Asia. Go to events. You know, get ninth through 12th. You know, have a nice salary. That's what I feel like. Does he have the hunger to be the best in the world again? Does he have the hunger to elevate his team to be the best in the world? So, like, those are the only three factors that have changed within Southeast Asia, is Taiga, Armel, and Abed. And that is, like, yeah, that's a lot of talent back in the Southeast Asian pool, but they're also, all three of them, talents that they're not coming back at their peak. They're not coming back at their prime.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one of them will prove to be back on top again, but I feel like not very likely that all three of them are like, you know, are all there. So there's some other talent that's like coming up in Southeast Asia. There's this talent roster that I don't know very much about some of their players. But like when I scroll through everybody else, I'm like, yeah, know them. Don't know IHC. I don't know this Mongolian roster. So, but I doubt that's who people are talking about when this person's like, is Southeast Asia like crazy stacked this year?
Yeah, they're looking at Talon and Bleed and Neon and Blacklist and Execration.
Yeah, I'm like, looks the same to me. And believe me, I want Southeast Asia to do well. I grew up on watching Chinese and Southeast Asia Dota 1. For me, those are the homes of Dota, not Western Europe. I would love to see Southeast Asia do well. But I'm disappointed year after year after year of more than one team being successful. So I am skeptical. I don't think much has changed with NC, but maybe I'll be proven wrong.
I think it's a correct skeptic to have.
Yeah.
Was there anybody else to round out this conversation? Any other real changes? I think that they're still going to keep on trickling in up until, you know, January for the teams who don't know, but
no, it's just Shopify, Nigma, and China. That's kind of the TBD, but for everything else, it's just a question of like, okay, now who's gonna be new talent? Who's gonna come in? Who's gonna be the new gaming gladiators? You know, Team Tickles to come in and upset the status quo.
Real quick, I do have a thought on the new Team Secret roster. I think that this roster is a pretty mid one.
Yeah, you and the rest of the community. I mean, I think it's Poppy has done it a few times before in his career. where he has taken middling players and brought them up. And I feel like he has definitely had some rosters that have overperformed what their players were at. And then he's been able to take that success and then like tweak the roster, and it gets better and better over a year. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it feels like in some ways he's back to square one. But you know, I'm not gonna judge too harshly until I actually see them playing, which I'm gonna see them tomorrow playing because I'm casting the qualifiers of Kuala Lumpur. I'm casting one series a day.
Entity Alliance, no, OG Secret. Yeah. Yep.
OG Secrets is their match. I'm not casting that game, but yeah, that's a tough one because I think OG is like that is obviously one of the Western European teams that has the highest ceilings, I would say.
Do you think Evil Geniuses is going to have a Dota team this year?
No, I think Evil Geniuses as an organization is going to be folding soon. They dropped out of League of Legends, CSGO, and Dota. That's the big three. Unless you're making some grand move into mobile esports, you're fucking done as an esports organization.
Did they drop out of League of Legends?
Exit out of all three.
I don't think they dropped out of League of Legends. I don't think they dropped out of League of Legends.
Are you sure? I gave you my thing. Was there not a League of Legends bit on there? Because I made a funny fucking slideshow.
You did make a slideshow. This slide is very funny. Slide 9 is very
Evil
funny.
Geniuses to exit LCS and Counter-Strike. That's the report anyway. I don't know.
I think that is a rumor.
Okay.
I do not think that's official.
I mean, it's not like the LCS numbers have been great lately.
Whoa.
And also, wasn't there a fucking Valorant roster? What happened with that? That Valorant roster that won
World Champions
fucking Worlds was exploring options and shopping around. So then you're giving up on Valorant too? The up and coming esport? Fucking dead org. Yeah. This time next year they will be dead. They will be the dead geniuses.
That's quite a bag to fumble. Winning Valorant and then whatever's happening now. I wish them well. I don't
think you do.
I will always have like positive 2012 affinity with Evil Geniuses and Hydra and old Counter-Strike teams and
not 2015.
Okay, I mean there was a time period between 2011 and 2015 where EG was really dope, and I'll always have that. I still want one of those jackets with the Velcro on the side and the patches. She was cool.